Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
Friends, family, strangers, dogs, weird aunts and uncles, and everyone out in the streets, welcome to the Holy Moment Podcast, a podcast where we talk about films with you, and we discuss the moments that work, the moments that don't, and of course, the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways. And oh my gosh, I am sad. I'm so terribly sad tonight. I made us watch a very sad movie, and I watched it like an hour and a half ago, and I cried, and now I am here in this office with my friend Jeffrey. Hello, Jeffrey.
I am stoked. I am so stoked because of how sad this movie made me last night. And maybe that's the difference, right? You just watched it, and I watched it last night, and so I've had time to process my grief, and now I'm just super stoked.
Yeah, that's how grief works, everyone. What is it, the 5 stages of grief? You know, you get sad, and then you get stoked. Fun fact, there's only 2 stages of grief, apparently. Oh, man. No, we watched The Iron Claw last week, and this was my pick. So this was for Dealer's Choice, where in our categories, we get to pick one movie a season. Doesn't have to fit into any category. It can be a movie we've seen a million times or a movie we've never seen. I picked The Iron Claw because it's been on my watch list since it came out in December of 2023, and I've really been wanting to get around to it. And I like to use the Dealer's Choice to force me to watch a movie I want to watch. I just don't make time for. So that's why I chose it this week. And I knew it was sad. Like that was like the consensus by everyone. I feel like the consensus for everyone was like, this is a sad movie. And wait a minute, Zac Efron can act? Those like the 2 things I kept hearing about this movie. But I was not prepared for how sad it was. I don't cry a whole lot in my life. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but I did in fact cry watching this movie like twice. How many times did you cry, Jeffrey?
My eyes got a little wet at several points during this movie.
Wow.
I also am in the same boat. I don't really cry at movies nearly as often as I would like. I want to be moved to tears by things. And I think that this is the closest that a movie has gotten in a very long time. It was very moving, though. It affected me.
Have you cried in any of the movies we watched for the podcast that you can recollect?
Oh, maybe Grave of the Fireflies.
I think I cried during Grave of the Fireflies as well. I cannot remember 100% sure, but I'm 90% sure I did.
Baby Geniuses too.
With that, let me tell you a little about the movie, guys. So yes, we watched The Iron Claw. This movie was directed by Sean Duncan. It came out in December of 2023, probably why it didn't make a lot of Oscar nominations, or actually any Oscar nominations, because it was kind of just late in the season. Studio, classic A24 film. Budget, $16 million, but it made $45 million. So I feel like it did pretty decent. Also, $16 million. I feel like they made $16 million go pretty far. Granted, it wasn't like a spectacular thing to look at. Like, it was very visually pleasing cinematography, but it wasn't anything crazy, like no crazy CGI or action or yada yada. But still, I feel like 16
million. It was just
million.
solid cinematography.
Yeah.
Like no flashy CGI, just well executed shots.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I'm very excited to talk about the cinematography for this movie. Our cast. Actually, I want to talk about what the movie was before I talk about the cast, because I feel like it's very important. Funny enough, I think 2 weeks ago we did my pick, or 3 weeks ago, because last week was Snakes on a Plane, the week before that was Superman. So three podcasts ago, we did my pick for biopic. My pick for biopic, which was Steve Jobs. And I didn't realize when I chose my Dealer's Choice, it was kind of another biopic, not as much, which is interesting because actually in that episode we talked about the difference in like based on a true story, a biopic, and a documentary, because this movie was just based and inspired on true events. But I digress. The movie, Iron Claw, it follows the famous Von Erich family, who is a really pivotal family, I think kind of in like the 1960s to 1980s in the wrestling world. I might be misquoting that, but basically there was a father who was kind of important in the wrestling world in like the 50s and 60s, and then he has 6 sons, and he's like, you know what? I couldn't get the world title of like best wrestler in the world, so I'm going to train my sons up to be that. And so we follow the story of the 4 brothers, and the inner turmoil and kind of the struggle they go through being famous and also being pushed by their father into things they don't want to do, and has a very depressing ending. But it is based on this true story. And I did a bit of research, and like, I would say it's relatively accurate. They combine some events, they subtract some events. I would say it's like 65-70% accurate from what I could tell from a little bit of research. But that is our story and our cast. Zac Efron plays the lead, Kevin Von Erich. Jeremy Allen, who we all know and love from The Bear, plays Carrie, one of the brothers. Harris Dickinson plays the David Von Erich. Maura Tierney plays Doris Von Erich, the wife and mother. Stanley Simons plays Mike Von Erich, which is another brother. And Holt McKinley plays Jack Fritz, who is the father to all the sons. And last, I want to mention Lily James plays Pam Atkinson, which is the wife to our main character, Kevin Von Erich. So, okay, that was a lot. Before I ask my first question, just to give us some grounding points. There are 4 brothers. In the movie, there are 5. In real life, there are 6, fun fact. And in the movie, one of them died really young, which is true. So we follow 4 main brothers. Again, we have Kevin, Carrie, David, and Mike. So those are the 4 brothers. We're going to be talking a lot about them. But basically, all you need to know, there's 4 brothers. They wrestle. They get into some shenanigans like drugs and depression. But yeah, so that's kind of the movie. Jeffrey, you hadn't seen this movie. I feel like you've seen a good handful of movies we watch. What was you just watched it last night. What were your first takeaways of the movie?
Well, first I want to say that, like you, this is a movie that has been on my watch list for a long while, and I've really wanted to see it. And I had high expectations for this movie, and this movie delivered. I'll say this about Kevin Von Erich as portrayed in the film. I didn't know much about the movie, save for the fact that it ends tragically. There are brothers involved, and it's professional wrestling. And you see pictures of Zac Efron in this movie, and he is a Hulk, right? He is ripped and heavy and grizzled looking, and I guess I was coming in with this thought that, okay, he's going to be a brute. He is going to be a vicious competitor. He is going to have towering ambition, right? And we see at the beginning of the movie, the father's directly pitting his children against one another, right? Very blasé, saying, yeah, I mean, I have favorites. It goes this, 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 and this, but it's all liable to change, right? And so part of me was thinking, okay, this might be a whiplash situation, right? Where the father brings out all of the worst qualities in these kids, and they become corrupted by it, right? And so yeah, I was expecting a vicious Goliath, right, from Kevin Von Erich. Instead, what we got was a gentle giant, sensitive, soft-spoken, sweet, and just genuinely good, genuinely loving. And it was so refreshing, and I loved him so much as a character. And Zac Efron, Oscar-worthy performance, really just gave this role, this character, I guess this person, so much humanity. And so that was one of my biggest takeaways is just, man, Zac Efron, you blew me away.
Yeah, I mean, he did a phenomenal job with portraying his character, Kevin Von Erich. It just, not just in performance, but also the physicality of it. You love to hear about A-list actors going through a transformation, getting ripped, losing a bunch of weight, or gaining, maybe even gaining weight for a role. But Jeffrey could not, it is not an understatement. He was thick, he was girthy, and I don't say that in a weird way. There was so much of him. And the weird thing was, when I was filling out my little notes, I was just on Wikipedia of gathering all the information, and I saw a picture of Zac Efron, and I was like, whoa, he transformed himself crazy. Now, granted, I don't know what current day Zac Efron looks like, so maybe before the movie he was already kind of getting jacked. I guess the last thing I saw him in was the relaunch of Baywatchers or whatever that was back in 2017. He got really ripped for that, but it was in the classic skinny, fit, hot dude. He wasn't like their forearms. That is what was crazy to me. It's impressive, a big bicep, chests and abs and back, but all of the brothers, who I've seen in other media, who are not always these big and ripped guys, they got their forearms big, which is insane to me. The bulging, popping, veins. So the point is, he committed fully, emotionally, physically. I did not recognize at all that was Zac Efron, and he absolutely did an incredible job. And I really want to talk about his performance because that was just a highlight for me.
Yeah, they didn't use stunt doubles for the wrestling scenes. That was all them. The amount of athleticism that takes, holy cow.
There was a training montage, or if memory serves it correctly, I think it was after spoilers. Also, yeah, I don't usually say this for movies, but this kind of like we're going to talk about sad things, self-harm, suicide, things that can make people sad, including me an hour and a half ago. But I think after one of the scenes, once his brother had died, I can't remember which one. I think it was Mike. I think after Mike died, he was too depressed to go home to his wife and kids. So he started sleeping at the wrestling club that he was managing at the time. And he was going through like an emotional workout, like putting all of his emotions into his workout. And do you remember the thing you guys can all imagine like a boxing ring. And you know how it has like those 3 or 4 big elasticy ropes? He like would grab onto them and then flip his body over and lower himself all the way down while just holding on with his arms and then raise himself all the way back up. Like, I'm not explaining it very well, but it was insane. Absolutely like peak human calisthenics. That was insane.
That made me want that physique. And that's not a physique that one casually wants,
Like, no, 100%. Like, and throughout the movie, another thing I kind of want to talk about is just the wrestling world in general. Weird group of people, weird world. I want to talk about it. But before I do, no one deserved that like best wrestling belt more than Kevin, based just on his physique alone. Like throughout the movie, the dad, he's kind of scheming. He's like, this son lost this wrestling match, so he can't really get the belt this year. So I'm going to push this brother. And all the other brothers just paled in comparison when it came to the Kevin's godlike physique. And I was like, just give this man a belt alone for his body.
Yeah, no, and it really just goes to show that when it comes to that world, it's a performance at the end of the day. And if you have that onstage charisma, that will ultimately get you farther than having the body alone.
Yeah, which is something that they talked about, or it was like subtly hinted at, that just he didn't have the stage presence. He didn't have the big booming voice. There were times where the brothers like took the microphone away from him because they could talk better. They could trash talk better. We see him trying to do interviews where he has to do take after take because he's stumbling over his words. So he doesn't have that big bombastic personality. Like you said, quiet giant. But what I also like about him, he wasn't stupid. We see later on that he becomes the manager of the wrestling arena, and he's the one that like kind of puts the plan into action to save the money. It was a very small scene, but just the fact we weren't showed that he had anything higher than a high school education. It didn't seem like he went to business school by any means of the imagination. So the fact that he knew what needed to be done. He was never portrayed as a stupid person, which I really liked.
It's so interesting too, because I think that them being under their father's thumb stunted their development in some respects, right? Like in the beginning of the movie, they're in their childhood bedrooms, and it's still decked up very much as a child's bedroom would be decked out with, posters of rocket ships and colorful quilts. Which I guess that brings me to like another tangential thought. Zac Efron, fantastic in this role, right? Could not have been better cast. One unintended byproduct of his being cast is I was always a bit unsure about how old the characters were supposed to be at any given point. Now, I think I got the general gist of it, but I'd always assumed, okay, Kevin Von Erich, he must be like 10, 15 years older than David, right? But in real life, apparently, it's just a 1-year difference.
Yeah, I was surprised because they actually threw out ages pretty frequently when it was like, when your brother David died, he was 25. And I was like, okay, I believe he was 25. Because I had the same thought. All the brothers, besides Mike, kind of looked similar in age. So you had a hard time guessing. But like the father, they weirdly threw out ages often when the father was like, you're 40 years old and you can't even support yourself. Or your brother died at 25,
Yeah.
or yada, yada. Interesting. I never had an issue with that. I feel like I was able to gauge him getting older throughout the movie going on.
No, I think that when we compare just Zac Efron with David, Zac looked so much older.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just
David.
a me
Yeah,
thing.
that's fair. Like it's because he started in the movie 17 again. I guess it would be the opposite. I was gonna say he has a 17th youth to him. Wasn't that Zac Efron 17 again?
Yeah, that's right.
I was trying to mention a movie you haven't seen. Shame you for once. But I don't mention like
long time
classics.
ago.
I mention garbage movies. Yeah. I love Zac Efron in this movie. I want to get more into his character of Kevin a little bit later. But before that, I wanted to actually talk about the opening scene because I thought it did a great job setting up the movie. It set up the tone. It set up the dichotomy of our characters, the world they live in, of this harsh, world of wrestling, but then also this bigger than life love they have for each other. Because we open up the scene in beautiful, beautiful opening shot, black and white. It's a really wide kind of fisheye lens of the wrestling arena, way down in the ground, and it's dark. And then
Can I say, sorry, I saw that shot, and immediately my first thought is Nathaniel's going to love this.
I just am a big hoe for wide static shots with so much intentionality that they're just so striking. But so it's black, and then one spotlight comes on, and then another, and another, and another, and another, and then all of a sudden, this ring, it has this mystery to it, it has this power, it has this energy. You want to go find out about it. But it's also kind of scary. You know, we think A24 horror. This by no means the imagination was horror by any world. But it does have every once in a while this sense of stressful, foreboding energy. And that was one of the most striking images in the whole movie, just this black and white, contrasty, grainy ring. Anything could happen there, and you know something bad is eventually going to happen there. And so then anyways, we cut in, and it's the father. It's Fritz. And he's in his prime. So he's wrestling, and he's beating the crap out of this dude. He's just pummeling this guy. And we get this sense that he is angry, that he is just a bitter old, just like Jeffrey was saying, like classically no emotion, just beating the crap out of this person. But then we cut to the end of the fight, and he walks out, and his sons are there, and his pregnant wife, and he is so kind and loving, and he's just like, oh my gosh, did you guys see the fight? He hugs them, he kisses them, he's sweet, he's talking to them, and you can tell things are slightly off by the way they interact, but for the most part, like, you think you'd come out and be this gruff father who has no emotional connection with them. But instead, he's like, oh my gosh, what a great day. How are you guys doing? And I just thought it set up the dichotomy of this movie really well. What did you think of that whole opening bit?
I loved it for all the reasons that you've mentioned. He is such an interesting character, the father, because, what you expect from this authoritarian father who was a professional wrestler known for his aggression. You might imagine that the kind of abuse that he would inflict on his children would be more physical, more direct, right? But no, I mean, he seemed to have a genuine affection for his kids and never laid a hand on them and treated them at least with some semblance of respect, if not respect outright. Yeah, it's a very compelling depiction of abuse, I think.
I want to talk about Fritz's character a lot. I want to state here at the beginning, I know with like Steve Jobs, a big talk of it was the real, the biopic, the real Steve Jobs versus this movie Steve Jobs, and kind of analyzing through that lens. I'm not as interested doing that with the Iron Claw. First off, they said it's based on a true story, which I feel like already gives them more creative liberty to divorce themselves. And secondly, I don't know, I think it can be dangerous to talk and say like, well, this movie portrayed this guy in this way, so therefore he's a horrible person. Let's talk about all the ways he was horrible. If it's like a documentary or like we know this about this person, I'll be more comfortable. But like I am sure the movie captured some genuine, real elements about the father. And I'm sure the father wasn't a great person when 6 or 5 out of your 6 kids end up dead. I feel like at some point you probably failed a little bit as a father, regardless. But all that to be said, I'm very interested in discussing the character in which they presented in the movie, regardless of how real that is to the true story of Fritz the father. But with that being said, I completely agree with you. It was an interesting take on abuse, especially because I feel like so often we get this type of what we see often is this pseudo-sexual male dominative over a female. Don't worry, darling. It's the first one I think of when we kind of think of this role of abuser, but it's kind of reversed where it is a male and he is loving, but he's manipulated with that love, but it's towards his sons, and there's no like weird sexual connotations. But it is like in a manipulative, I am, what's the word? Living vicariously through you. The father was very much living vicariously through, because he was bitter that he never won the belt, the big wrestling belt. And so he needed his kids to win this belt. And the abuse between the kids and him was one of the most fascinating parts of the movie. And all that to say, the point is, the reason I made the distinction between the person and the character, I'm not talking about a real person, I'm talking about the character. Even though in the movie, he is very much not 100% at fault, but like a large reason for the later deaths of the children, whether it was suicide or the dying of an injury from wrestling. you also have to say, you don't think the kids probably would have done as much that impacted the world if it wasn't for him. I'm not arguing that that was worth it, but I am saying that I do think his presence and how he pushed those kids was very unhealthy. But if it was done in a more healthy light, it was very admirable with how much these kids achieved. I mean, they were like 25 when some of them died. So these young adults, how much they were able to achieve because their father loved them in a certain way, even though it was very not cohesive, corrosive and manipulative. But it's still just impressive what they were able to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whiplash conflict, right? You have this really awful drum instructor and then an impressionable young man, and you put one with the other, and the kid is going to get so hurt, but he's also going to get so good. But then the interesting thing with this movie is he's not just molding one person, he's molding four, right? And these individuals, each of them have their own strengths and weaknesses, right? And his treatment of them, his like consistent treatment of them, is going to bear different fruit based on the unique child. Like Mike was never going to be in any reality a good wrestler. Right?
Yeah, it was, not to interrupt for two, it was crazy. I never thought they were going to put him in the ring. And then when they had that scene after David died, and they're like, well, Kevin's already failed. Let's put Mike in the ring. I was like, what are you doing? You're insane if you think this kid should be in the ring. Or what's happening? But yeah, continue.
Yeah, because like early on, the father explicitly tells a whole crowd of people, every one of my sons is going to get a world championship belt. Everyone. And he lists them all, right? And so it is about ego for him at the end of the day, right? He has affection for his kids, but ultimately his priorities are on securing his name in the annals of professional wrestling history. But Mike was a talented musician, and that was never allowed to blossom because of the very strict upbringing and the iron claw of his father.
What a beautiful symbolism, the idea. So the Iron Claw, the name of the movie, was the father's go-to move in his heyday, in like the 60s. Also, fun fact, not fun, weird fact, real life. So the real life father and this world, Earth. You know, so in wrestling, you know how it's all gimmicky, and often if you make it into the big leagues, you kind of have a pseudo character almost that you play, like almost dress up. You know about that?
Yeah.
Do you want to know what the dad's character was when he was in his heyday prime in like the 60s?
I looked it up, but you tell me.
He played a German Nazi officer with like a cape and everything.
It's crazy.
Wild. Yeah, and apparently he got a lot of flack for it, but also like we were saying, this is an entertainment-based industry, not necessarily an athletic-based industry. Even though it's controversial, no bad publicity is still good publicity. All publicity is good.
Okay.
So that's crazy.
Here's my thinking. Yeah, here's my thinking on that, right? He's grumbling about how he never got his world championship belt. But you have to understand that if you're gonna make your character a Nazi sympathizer, like explicitly, you're never gonna have that championship belt, right? You can get pretty high as a heel, right? But I can't imagine they'd want to give that championship belt to a character that is so blatantly evil.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like a self-inflicted wound. I mean, it worked to give him a lot of fame, a lot of notoriety, and it got him to the higher echelons of that world. But listen, you got to do something different, man, if you want that belt.
Yeah, you have forward thinking you got to have, Fritz. I mean, the fact that he had 6 kids and made them all wrestlers, that's pretty forward thinking. But I digress. I won't sidetrack my own thoughts, but yeah, his whole thing was the Iron Claw, where he puts his hand on your face and grips it really tightly. And it's this beautiful symbolism because all of his kids take it on at one point. All of them use the Iron Claw, and you're like, oh yeah, he's embracing their father's like signature move. But it's also this idea of like, it's the abusive. Like they're captured in this Iron Claw, and not only they're captured in it, they're not trying to escape. They're doing it themselves. They're using the thing that their abuser like used on them. So I think that's just a little bit of beautiful symbolism, that physical, emotional abuse.
Yeah, they don't always recognize that that's what's happening, right? They're talking about this Von Erich curse, right? but the curse is, in fact, their father's influence over them, right? That's what's causing all of the tragedy. It's that iron claw.
Yeah, and it's just it's something where you don't not even do not recognize it. They idolize it. They want to have the iron claw. They want to have the permission to use it in wrestling matches. They want to carry on their dad's legacy. So it's just interesting that I think that happens like all the time. I mean, on the high end level, you have like Stockholm syndrome, but also just like in daily life, you start to idolize and praise the things that should not be praised, and you start to want to mimic the things in life that actually might be hurting you and you don't even realize it, the people in life that are hurting you or your own actions. And so I just thought that was a really interesting way of showing kind of the abuse, this idea of like, this is something great, but little do they know it's the thing that they're desperately trying to avoid their whole life, and yet they're here idolizing it.
Yeah, like it makes me think of the moment in the bathroom stall when Kevin's like, maybe you shouldn't go to Japan this weekend. And then immediately they both laugh about it. It's like, yeah, like that can't happen, right? Neither of them take that idea seriously, even though that's what is best objectively for David. And they're not callous people. Kevin's not a callous guy. He has genuine care for and concern for David. But neither of them, just because of their conditioning, can believe that not going to Japan is an actual option.
Yeah, I mean that brings up one of the biggest themes in the whole movie is uh, I don't know how much I like this term, but I think it's perfect for this movie. Toxic masculinity. I think this movie really tackled something that could be true. I think it's becoming less and less true about this generation, maybe truer about the past generation. But this idea of the father, he's like at their brother's funeral, he tells them, take off your sunglasses, face it like a man, and you can't cry. Men don't cry. So you have this idea of men, and then the dad went on and on, like, we can avoid the curse. We can take care of our family if we're at our physical best and we're pushing ourselves the hardest and we're achieving the most. And I feel like this idea of toxic masculinity is this idea of if I can achieve, then therefore everything will be okay. And I feel like these guys that at the top 1% of like human physique, they are like the Roman Greek gods, but on internally their world is absolutely destroyed. And so I just thought this idea of this beautiful theme of no matter how much you hone your physical body, if you don't take care of your internal world, you will decay. And how at the end of the movie, because Kevin, our main character, has been told over and over again, you can't cry, you can't show your emotion, you got to face things head on. Don't go to anyone else. Don't go to your wife. Don't go to your children. Don't go to your family. Push, push, push. This is between you and the conflict. At the very end of the movie, he's crying, and his two kids come up to him, and he tells them, he's going to pass on the iron claw to his kids, not even on purpose, but like, sorry, you shouldn't seem like this. Men don't cry. And the kids were like, what are you talking about, Dad? We cry all the time. We'll cry with you. We're here for you. And I just thought that was such an impactful moment of kind of breaking that curse idea, and the fact that it was children's youthful and children's innocence that could set something straight. I think it was really cool.
Yeah, and it's also just proof that Kevin is not his father. Because I cannot imagine that Kevin or Mike or David or Carrie could have said the same thing to their father had they seen Fritz like crying. I think they would have like internalized that. Kevin is not his father, and because he is not his father, his kids feel comfortable with the concept of men crying and expressing emotion.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also interesting on that idea of like the sons never stood up to their dad. I was waiting. I mean, we have one scene that we'll talk about later, but I was waiting for like the boiling point of where like a son finally stands up to their dad. Hey, Dad, you're pushing us too hard. Hey, Dad, you're being manipulative. Hey, Dad, you're not listening to us. And it is not until quite literally it is too late in every means that matters. It is too late when someone stands up to him. And so I was just shocked with how much they went along. And not only did they not stand up to him, they wanted to encourage him. Like the scene after David died. So David was kind of the golden boy. He was the most charismatic. He was the one that could probably win the title champion. And he was going to. He had a big battle in Japan. Then after that, he was going to come back to America and fight the current national champion. But in Japan, he died in his hotel room from a ruptured intestine. So believably either through drugs or through a internal wound from a match, or a combination of both. But he died. And so we have the three remaining brothers, Kevin, Mike, and Curry, and the father on the porch at night. And you can tell the brothers are just devastated. Something I love in this movie is the brotherly love they have for each other. It was so great. We'll talk about that more later. But the brothers are devastated, just sitting in silence. And the dad just chimes in. And the great thing is, he's going to. He's going to do this, which I think just they did a good job with his characterization. And he's like, we can't miss this opportunity. And he does it in a great grand speech that, again, very manipulative, very charismatic. And say, we cannot miss this opportunity that your brother worked so hard for. Someone has to go fight in this tournament to get the belt. I deserve the belt. And you think at that point, one of the brothers is going to be like, screw you, Dad. Our brother just died because we pushed him too hard. What are you talking about? But instead, both brothers got into a fight saying, no, I'll be the one to go do that fight to defend our brother's honor. And they didn't have any issue with how the father was using it to manipulate them to get what he wanted and to live vicariously through them.
It's just they don't see it. They don't see it because they're thinking, well, what Dad wants is what's best for us as a family. And they've internalized those values. And it's so tragic.
I feel like we have a whole Tangled episode again where we're like 30 plus minutes into it. And we've talked about quote unquote the villain the whole time. Go check out our episode Tangled.
Oh,
It's one of the last episodes from the season. And we talked for like 40 minutes about Mother Gothel and like her psychology as character. And then we're like, well, we should probably talk about Rapunzel and Flynn, I guess.
Well, I want to glaze Kevin a bit more because Kevin, again, he is trapped along with his brothers under the iron claw of Fritz. But he is somehow almost angelically good in spite of it, right? Or just so well-intentioned. And as we mentioned before, the kids are pit against each other. And Kevin misses out on his opportunity to ask for a rematch, like for the World Heavyweight Championship belt. And David is asked to go in his place. And in any other film, you would probably see that tension boiling up until it blows out, right? It's just this big explosion of anger and a shouting match. But instead, what that culminates in is that very tender bathroom stall moment where Kevin is checking up on David and David's assuring him it's fine. And Kevin very bluntly says, listen, man, I did not take that news well when Dad chose you over me to pursue this heavyweight championship belt. And I apologize. I was very angry, but it was not at you. It was at the circumstances. And that just is so emotionally mature and not what I would have expected.
I don't know how much of it is true to the real story, but the fact that this movie was through the lens of Kevin was great. It was through his perspective. We followed him most of the time. Now, granted, we got everyone's story. We got Mike and David and Curry and Fritz's story, but it was really through Kevin's perspective. And we needed that because Kevin was the most grounded and the most willing to try and be in touch with his emotions. Like my favorite aspect of, I feel like, Zac Efron's performance was two parts. It was the weight he carried in every single scene. You could tell the world was crushing him and he was trying his best to carry forward like men should do. But then secondly, it was the fact that you could tell he cared. And I don't know if you wanted to talk about his emotions. Like when he first meets his now wife Pam, and Pam's asking him all these questions. She's like, "Why aren't you asking me any questions?" And I think you got the feeling of A, he's super awkward, never been on a date, but also B, he doesn't know how to be in touch with his emotions. He doesn't know how to talk about things probably all that well. But we see the evolution of his character and that he wants to, regardless if he's good at it or not. He's a character that wants to connect with people. He wants to have hard conversations. He wants to talk about how he is feeling. But you can tell he's always doesn't know if he can bring it up. He only does it once in a while. He almost has one scene per brother where he brings up something hard or some confrontation. And you could tell the whole time he wants to. While the other brothers conflicted in their own right, don't get me wrong, but they're not searching always to connect with someone else the way that I feel like Kevin is desperately trying to connect with everyone. And so I felt like he made for a really good reference point, a glue, a centerpiece for the whole movie, and then the rest of his family to center around.
Yeah, I mean, so you can tell that all of the brothers are very close to one another, but Kevin in particular is seeking relationship with them, whereas they're, for the most part, seeking approval from their father. I would just say that the closest relationship I think we saw on screen was David and Kevin. I think that's the relationship I was most emotionally invested in.
Really? I felt it about Kevin and Curry. Just because I feel like David died so quickly. And I will say this. It took me a while to grasp not the tone, but this is going to sound dumb. It took me a while to grasp what was happening in the movie because I do not understand the world of WWE. Like, I don't understand the world of the fake rest. I was having a really hard time like grasping the stakes. Like, wait, is this real? They're so freaking jacked, but it's not real. Wait, what are they working so hard towards? Wait, so it took me a while to finally realize, like, oh, it's not fake in the sense it's fake, but I loved how Kevin described it. It's just like getting a promotion. If you do a good job, and doing a good job not necessarily is fighting the other person until they pass out, but it's garnishing the audience's love for you. That is partially, through the athleticness of like being able to do cool stunts, but it's also the story that you weave for yourself. So the point is, it just took me a little while to like ground where the story was going narratively because I didn't understand how the world of WWE worked. So by the time I finally firmly planted myself in the story, David was like basically dead. So I feel like I got, and also I just feel like I got more out of Curry's character. David, I feel like I never kind of understood where he stood. And that's because I was so certain we were going to follow Kevin and his journey through wrestling. But pretty quickly, Kevin messes up. Kevin's the golden boy. He's the one that's the most fit. He's been wrestling the longest. He's the one that's really pursuing it. But then he gets the chance at the national title. And he spoofs up. He can't get it. And basically, like, once you fall out of like the graces of the audience, you're done for. So the father pivots to David. And so I just didn't know that was going to happen. I thought we were going to follow Kevin's whole journey all the way through to the end. And so I just was taken by surprise. So therefore, I wasn't paying attention to David. I wasn't understanding who David was and what was going on for him. And then boom, he was dead. And so I was much more invested in Curry and Kevin's relationship.
Yeah. And, maybe I was wrong to say that I was more emotionally invested in David and Kevin. I think what I was trying to get at was I liked their dynamic, like watching them together. It made me feel, like these are brothers that really care for each other. They're peers, right?
I see. Yeah.
Whereas Carrie and Kevin, Curry's definitely the younger brother that's going through it, right? And I watched them interact, and it's like, oh, Curry, like, you got to get help, man. Listen to your older brother, right? It's more stressful, and I am more emotionally invested in this because, like, what's going to happen to him, right? He needs help. But as far as looking at a healthy relationship, David and Kevin were peers in a way that the others were not.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because you and I are both younger brothers. I'm younger brother to one brother, and you're a younger brother to three older brothers. Yeah. Jeffrey, you guys could be the Von Erichs of the 20th generation, the 21st century. That's what I'm trying to say. I could see it.
Time to drink a 6-pack of beers and hop on a motorcycle.
Yeah. That's what it's all about. It's about the aesthetics. I mean, look at you. You got the polo. You got the chest hair. Guys, if you're listening to this podcast, go watch it. You can see Jeffrey's beautiful chest hair.
Oh, thank you. Shucks. Show off your chest hair.
No, I don't have. I have more stomach hair than chest hair. I don't have like your chest hair like naturally curls towards your throat. It looks very good. That was a weird way of saying it, but good chest hair, Jeffrey.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Maybe you should try some Rogaine.
This has been the
put it on your sternum.
This has been the new halftime show where we talk about each other's chest hair. So tune in next week when at the 45-minute mark we talk about each other's chest hair once again.
I love this new segment.
The best one yet. But all that to be said, yeah, I think the brothers' bond was great. And I think I wasn't ready for the gut punch of, I would say, the climactic moment of the brothers' bond. And that was when, spoilers alert, Curry also commits suicide. So David dies first through an injury. And then Mike, the younger brother, commits suicide. And then Curry at the very end commits suicide. And Curry kills himself. And before he kills himself, he's kind of talking like, I need to be with my brothers. I can hear them calling. This earth is hell. I just want to be with my brothers again. And so once he dies, he shows up on this lake, a lake that we see earlier with the brothers hanging out. And there are his two brothers, David and Mike, on the pier. And he goes over there and they're hugging and it's so sweet. And that got me. I was tearing up a little bit, but then he pulls away and he's like, "Where's Jack?" And, it was talked about a few times. They had a younger brother who died at the age of 5. And a little boy walks up in this like dreamlike world. And him and Curry have this moment and they hug and then all of them hug. And I was bawling. I think it just, It's just, I was just talking with my wife the other day. You do not get certain dynamics and relationships enough in movies, and siblings, specifically brother ones, because I'm a brother to a brother, but I'm also brothers to sisters. But I just feel like a male on male brother bond is the type of movie to move me. And so I just was really refreshing to get like also such physicalness. Like it's not weird. It's not weird and incest or creepy or whatnot. It's just like they love each other and they hug and they kissed at one moment and they it just like it was never weird. And that was really cool. It was cool that the masculine, because when we think of toxic masculinity, it's like, oh, guys can't show physical affection. I really liked that they were physical with each other.
Yeah, I mean the moment when Kevin lays Curry on the table and he kisses his brother before he sits down, that was such a tender and poignant moment for me. Which I mean, that just speaks to your point. But
Yeah, no, yeah, but I agree. It's just the tenderness the brothers had. Again, it was just such a juxtaposition. They're these big, brute look liking guys, but they're loving, they're charismatic, they can be intimate, and it was really refreshing take on brothers and bonds, and I thought that was really nice.
and I think you can tell that that's born from like a real intimacy with each other, and because when Kevin calls Fritz saying you should check on Curry, he's like, y'all should handle that between yourselves.
Yeah,
And that has been the philosophy their whole childhood. And you can tell that they have relied on each other. Perhaps it's both a blessing and a curse that Fritz wasn't as involved. Because if Fritz had been more involved emotionally with his kids, perhaps they wouldn't have been as close. And then they would not have had the people to rely on and support that they ended up having.
it was cool to see like the fact that the father pitted them against each other and they still chose to love it. Like, there was moments of friction, like where they got brought up where they were jealous or whatnot, but you never got this feeling that it was this deep seated, it fueled their every intention. You know what I mean? Where like characters get along,
Yeah.
but deep down they're frustrated or angry. Like, yeah, they had frustrating moments, but they felt like moments. I'm frustrated with you right now. It didn't feel like I have this undercurrent of frustration with you all the time and I'm just putting on face, but actually I'm angry at you. It was just moments. So I was happy to see that the father pitted them against each other, but they were still able to love each other in that. And iron sharpens iron. I felt like they made each other better, and I thought it was great.
Yeah, not to keep up bringing up the bathroom scene, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. Where in other movies, that would lead to an explosion, right? Really hurt feelings on both ends, right? All the siblings hate each other now, where they once loved each other. But that love never died. And it was so strong, in fact, that even in the face of this friction, they could sit down with one another and say, hey, this is what I have been feeling. I am sorry. And this is that broader context. And there was just a level of understanding that they were all willing to afford to one another.
It's one of my favorite things when you get into a scene and you're like, this is what's going to happen because this is what they always do in movies. And then they flip the script and they do something different. It's always such a great thing. Even if it doesn't always land, I appreciate the intention of doing something different. But it is true, since we're already like almost 50 minutes into this, and I feel like it's still a lot to say. I want to move on from Fritz and Kevin for a moment, and I want to talk about Mike for a second. Being the youngest and being very clearly the most out of the circle. He's not fit. He's not into wrestling. He's a nerd. He's into videography. He's into music. What did you think of Mike's character?
I really enjoyed it. I definitely felt that he was the black sheep of the family, but that his brothers didn't resent him or pick on him or think any lesser of him. It was just the dad that was that way towards Mike. The others were like, he's great at what he does, right? And we want to support him in this. We're going to take him to that gig at the college party. And so that was very encouraging. And then it was an awful thing seeing that match, Mike's first match, in which he has that shoulder injury and hearing him scream in a way that we have not heard from any of the other siblings, right? Because the others are going to tough it out. But Mike, that's just not him. Like, he doesn't have that mental makeup. He doesn't have that physical makeup. And that's not a bad thing. It's just his strengths lie elsewhere. And then the aftermath.
Yeah, I love in that scene how quickly his brother enters the ring, how quickly Kevin enters the ring. Now, granted, I believe they were doing a matchup team. So, like, one brother was in, the other one was standing right outside, ready to jump in at any moment. So, like, Kevin was very close. but he was in there in a split second. You know, he wasn't going to wait and see like, oh, is that an act? What, is he actually okay? Like the father was going to wait and be like, come on, get up, be a man. Kevin was in there the moment he thought his brother was hurt, and he was the one to call over the father. And so just like another small moment of like how much Kevin cares for his brothers and how much he carried the weight of the deaths of all his brothers. Did I push Mike into being a wrestler but didn't want to? How was I not there for Curry when he clearly was begging someone to be there for me? It was my fault that David was getting pushed so hard because I wasn't able to win the title championship. And I was the older brother. I should have done it. So now it's my younger brother's responsibility. It's just being the older brother and having to carry all of those deaths on his shoulders, compacted.
Which it's so tragic to watch because he did literally everything that he could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also loved, I know we were saying we're going to move on from him, but here we are praising him. I loved, in the movie, he wasn't a perfect father. He had his issues, rightfully so, but I'm so happy that he tried. He tried and he did. So after the first brother buys David, he starts sleeping at the office because he just can't, he's basically, I don't want the curse to rub off on my wife and child. And the wife is just like, we just need you around. That's all I need from you. And I just really appreciate that he ends up being able to do it. Like he doesn't stay at the office. They don't get a divorce. He doesn't have an affair. He one day wakes up and is like, I need to cut this shit out. And he shows up and he continues to show up for the rest of their life. And I really appreciated him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm so glad you brought that up because, not to compare it to Whiplash again, but we have that kind of story where you've got the overbearing mentor and they're pushing the student to their limits, and the student is becoming corrupted by the mentor's influence, and as a result, they're cutting off relationships that would otherwise be good for them. And so we see this kind of happening here, but rather than him cutting off relationships to pursue this higher ambition, he is distancing himself from his family because he does not want misfortune to befall them, right? He is thinking that he is responsible for this bad luck. He's like, I don't want to give my son the bad luck that all of my siblings have been experiencing. And it's so sweet, right? And tragic. And he is so clearly a victim. But then, as you said, he is willing to get back up and face his family head on and assume those responsibilities again, which is just a sign of tremendous strength.
Oh, for sure. And speaking of strength, I can't imagine the mental fortitude. Like I am not saying anyone is weak for the idea of suicide. That's not what I'm saying. But just the idea of like, oh, there's this curse in our family. It starts with, we can't win matches. Oh, when we win matches, the title's stolen from us. Oh, we have money, financial problems. Oh, my brother died of a wrestling issue. Oh, my other brother is now in a coma. This one got in a car accident. So just like these things compiling. And then 2 of the brothers took their own lives with suicide. I could imagine psychologically, you're like, we are cursed and I should follow suit. So for the fact that again, I am not criticizing the other 2 for how they ended and taking their own lives, but the fact that he was able to surround himself, probably one of the key factors is the fact that he had kids and a wife. The other 2 brothers didn't. Like he had some type of support system because the dad wasn't enough, or the dad was horrible and the mom wasn't able to be enough, whether it's her own weakness or because she's in a bad abusive marriage. But it just goes to show when it comes to mental fatigue, when it comes to things like depression and anxiety and stress, sometimes by the grace of God, you can get through it by yourself. But like 9 times out of 10, it comes from your friends and your family and your community. And I'm so happy that this movie highlighted that because the brothers only had the other brothers when they left suicide notes, when they called each other right before they killed themselves. It was the brothers who they were addressing. It was never like the father or the mother. It was always like they were addressing each other. And so that was the only community they had. But I think because of that unhealthy, toxic masculinity of the dad, they were taught, don't lean too much on your brothers. Like, they're their own men. You got to forge your own path. But he had children and a wife who basically told him, no, that's BS. We will be here for you. And that's how I feel like he was able to stave off at those same negative, depressive, suicidal thoughts.
Absolutely. If he had not met Pam, and if that shotgun wedding hadn't happened, I wondered how Kevin would have ended up. Part of me feels that like he has this innate resilience, I suppose, that perhaps he could have gone farther than the other siblings, but I think that his story would have ended much more tragically. Happy accidents.
Happy acting. Yeah, definitely. Speaking of, something I wanted to ask was, was it on your radar, at any point in the movie until it was happening? Did you get the vibe of suicide? Did you think that was going to end up happening?
I just knew that this movie was tragic, and early on, I got the sense that it had to do with brothers that were under the thumb of their father's negative influence, and them striving for an impossible dream. I could see it going in a suicide direction. So when I think tragedy, like suicide's definitely up there as far as one of the more tragic things. I'm trying to think back on.
The long hours ago of last night.
Yeah, it was so long ago, man. I can't remember what I was doing like 3 minutes ago.
Well,
I guess I was talking to you, but
yeah. The reason I bring it up is because I was same as you. Didn't know what it was about, but knew it was about brothers, knew it was tragic. I was waiting for the classic, he got in a car drunk and he crashed. Someone was angry and accidentally shot the other person. Like, I thought that was gonna be the tragedy. And normally if I do not get the vibe of something especially like suicide, then I would 100% say, wow, this was a failed movie. But the thing that I loved about this, because I didn't, I like until Mike literally swallowed all of the pills, I was like, oh, this is what's happening right now. I did not know until that moment, which maybe makes me oblivious, but I think what it is that it's a testament to the unhealthy, abusive, toxic masculinity that they were raised in. They were not supposed to talk about their emotions. And not only that, we as the audience were presented that these are strong men. And we're presented with strong men. Strong men cannot kill themselves. Strong men are strong. They will push through. They will persevere no matter what. And so the fact that I didn't think any of them would even consider killing themselves, I think played right into one of the themes and how we in society can have so much expectations of men to be quiet and suffer and to be strong. And we can't even fathom the idea that a man would take their life. And if it is, it's so how dishonorable. So I love that it snuck up on me. And the fact that it double whammied me, because, okay, Mike, I didn't see it coming, but sure, he was the more sensitive one. He was the less athletic one. He was the more moody, kind of artistic person. So it makes a little more sense that his character would commit suicide. But Curry 100% had the vibe of waking up dead in a ditch from heroin. I crashed Mike, and he crashes his motorcycle, loses his leg. But no, when he calls the brother and he's like, I'm in a dark place, I need help. I thought he was again talking about, I have an addiction. And he was to a degree, but he was like, no, I want to kill myself. I don't want to be alive anymore. And I was once again shocked. The fact that we already had a brother kill himself, they could still shock me again, was how much this idea of like, no, these are strong men. They would never do that. And I just think that's a beautiful idea that it's so clearly ingrained in our American Western idea of men that I got duped twice, and it really called me out.
No, I mean, I actually do remember now, I was in the same boat thinking that Curry would die from like an overdose, that his issue would be drugs. That did take me by surprise. I think when he gifted his dad the gun, I started having ideas about, okay, like, is this where this is going? Sort of a Chekhov's gun situation here.
Yeah.
Which that was so well, I love that scene, right? Because he's giving his dad the gun, and it's a very, like, happy sort of moment. But when Fritz isn't interested in shooting it immediately, Curry lashes out, right? It's like, why don't you want to try this now? And it just illustrates how desperate he was for that attention, that approval of his dad. Whereas with Kevin, he didn't need that approval anymore, or as intensely, because he had Pam, because he had his kids. With Curry, he was alone. He had Tanya, but like, who's Tanya? He didn't even know who Tanya was.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, two things I want to bring up to highlight your point in that scene, because again, it was such small directions that made it so good. In that scene, we have Kevin and his wife Pam like in the background. Like they're like way in the background, the foreground, or in the background, all blurred out. So again, they're taking this stance of neutrality. You get the feeling like they're at family Christmas. This is awkward. Another family fight, but they're able to be removed because they have each other. So that's one point there. I agree with you. But then the second point is also, once Curry lashes out, this little child desperate for his father's approval. I don't know if this was on purpose, and I don't know if you read it this way, but this is how I read it. after he lashes out and the dad kind of shrugs him off like, hey, don't get your panties in a wad. Let's eat some dinner. I'll shoot it later. What he does is interesting. He tries to be dominative. He's like, you're totally right, Dad. And he does it by like embracing his father around the neck, which is how the brothers have done the whole movie. It's like a loving, embracive thing. It's also kind of a wrestling move. When you first go in, you grab them around the neck. We saw that. But with the brothers, it was always like a feeling of love. I got in that moment, Curry was trying to be dominant over his father in that moment. He lashes out as a child, can't get what he wants, is rejected. I don't need you. I'm a big man. I'm a big, strong man. I'm my own person. Let me show you who's in charge. Like I got this like flip in him. And I thought that was brilliant acting and brilliant directing.
Yeah, and even on Fritz's part in that moment, it wasn't him receiving it in love. It was like, what are you doing? Like, don't touch me.
Yeah. Yeah, he was so nonchalant about how it meant everything to his kid, going from a child needing something to like putting up his walls. I'm a big, strong man. The dad was like, yeah, like I'll shoot it. Like, calm down. What are you doing, dude? Like, get a load of this guy kind of vibe. Just really good overall. Man, I will say I was a little worried. It's a longer movie, 2 hours, 10 minutes or so. It drug at the beginning. I think because the big issue was that, like I said, at the beginning of the movie, I had a really hard time grounding myself. I didn't know the stakes. What are the stakes? They're wrestling, but it's fake wrestling. The wrestling isn't like when they're in the ring, it's not stakes because they're like fake wrestling. So I just had a hard time grounding myself in what the story was. But I 100% think it's a slow burn. We have to set up these characters, the internal world, the bonds they have for the devastation to happen. And my goodness, I thought it was like, oh yeah, we'll build up the characters and then, oh no, someone got in a drunk crash. It's so sad. No, it's spontaneous death, accident, lose your foot. Oh no, now the brother's in a coma. It's like, okay, something bad happened to all the brothers. That's pretty bad. That sucks. Boom, one kills themselves. Another one kills themselves. It just was gut punch after gut punch. And it wasn't just like, oh, bad things happened. It was how they built upon the emotional turmoil that everyone was feeling. It wasn't like I just got in a car accident, saw a drunk driver hit me. That sucks. That's horrible. That's tragic. That's not like building something, but like the depression that was building in all of the brothers, the heaviness, the quote unquote curse that led to 2 of their deaths. This depression was building. You could feel that's what was building. That's what I loved. I don't love when movies like you feel like there's going to be one bad moment and it's leading up to it. And it just kind of happens. And it feels like a very unavoidable thing. Nothing built up to it. Just kind of like snap a finger happened. I love that you felt this depression and this turmoil growing like a wound, but no one was willing to talk about it.
Yeah, the tragedy didn't feel cheap, right? I think that there is a way of doing tragedy where, the first half of the movie is all sunshines and rainbows, and then one of the main characters contracts a terminal illness, right? Or one of them gets hit by a car, or I haven't seen this movie, but there's the movie, I think it's a rom-com or a romantic drama with Robert Pattinson, and one of the final shots is he's talking to his loved one, and zoom out, he's looking out of the window of the World Trade Center.
Oh yeah,
on 9/11.
I have heard about it's like a perfectly fine movie, but then they just end it like that, and they're like, why? What's happening? That should go on the list for next season to watch.
That'd be fun.
Oh man,
maybe.
But I had a few other questions, but I know we haven't even gotten to our holy moments yet. We're reaching an hour. Is there anything you wanted to talk about?
Man, I mean, the moment you ask that question, all the ideas are going to leave my brain. Let's see. One moment I thought was particularly cool is in that first black and white scene, right? We get that close up of the father, and he's sort of stomping on his enemy, right? Or he's really pushing into him. And we're seeing that primal anger, the aggression on his face. And I think after Kevin loses that first match with the title holder of the world championship, they're digging holes in the yard, and we get a shot that mirrors that first shot, and it's Fritz. He's just digging a hole, but like he still has that same rhythm, that same movement. Do you remember what shot I'm thinking about?
I definitely remember the shot. Oh yeah, yes. No, I do. I thought you were saying they were cut back to back. I was like, I know those scenes weren't back to back, but yes, I know what you're referencing now.
I just thought that it was a nice, subtle callback.
Yeah, I did not pick up on that.
Same guy. Yeah, same guy. different time period with the same feelings
Yeah.
and the same chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, that's good. No, there's a lot more I feel like I could talk about and have some more questions, but I can't ask all of them. But a scene that it almost made my holy moment, but it didn't quite. So I got to talk about it. Once I understood the world of wrestling, I really enjoyed it. And something that they did was, it's Fritz's whole purpose in life, and now because of that vicariously living through his sons, it's now the son's whole purpose in life. Get the national wrestling belt thingamajigger, win it for the Von Erich's family. At first it's this big daunting task and it means everything. But by the second and third act, it's kind of a joke. Like, I'm not dissing wrestling. I think it's a cool concept in itself, but how the movie spins it for like an emotional payoff, the brothers are going through so much more now than like wrestling. But we keep getting the national, like it trades hands like 3 or 4 times throughout the movie, and we keep getting these little interviews with like the person that's holding the national belt, and they're trash talking, and they're always so goofy. It's like, I'm the man. Whoever says they're the man isn't a man because they're not wearing the belt. Yada yada yada. So we get the scene where I believe Mike had just committed suicide, and Kevin is pissed off at his father, but probably more so at himself. He's so angry. He's such a tight ball of anger with nowhere to go. And you get this awesome anger cutting where it's Ryan. Oh, what was his name? He had a fun name. Like Ryan.
Is it Ric Flair?
Yeah, Ric Flair. I want to say Ryan Flair. Okay, Ric Flair. He was on the TV being interviewed, and he's like wearing really fancy. Like, his whole gimmick is, I think he's like a kind of a glitz glamour guy. And he's going on of like, I'm the best, I'm the richest, I have the most money. Because he's gonna go fight Kevin. So he's gearing up. He's diss talking him, and so he's like all over the top, very, campy, cheesy rote script for him. We cut back and forth to Kevin working out, sweating profusely, just filled with misguided anger. Doesn't know what to do with it. He's trying to burn this energy off. So he's have these 2 different energies, completely opposite juxtaposition. And then we get into the ring, and the bell is rung. And then Kevin beats the ever-loving shit out of Rick. And it was amazing. Because, again, Rick is like, yeah, I'm here for a show. I'm trash talking, yada. And Rick, and then Kevin over here is like, my brother just killed himself, and I don't know what to do with that rage. I'm going to take it out on you. I just thought the intercutting of that scene and the 2 different emotions were amazing. And it's so cathartic.
But then the scene afterwards when Ric Flair enters the locker room, he's like, hey, dude, that was like really sick what you did out there, man.
Yeah.
We should get a drink afterwards. I thought you were soft.
Yeah. Just like furthering that, like the 2 different worlds that they're in, where he's like, that was so cool. Like, he can't read the room. And Kevin's sitting there dying on the inside, still being like, I don't feel any better after that. Just an amazing scene. One thing I wanted to talk about, because we were talking a lot about like, the characters. I want to talk about a storytelling component more. So zooming out a little bit from a filmmaker's perspective. What did you think of the concept? Directors do this, and I think sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm 50-50. I haven't decided yet. I need to watch it again before I have a decision. The director really intentionally decided to underplay big moments. To give a little bit of example is, remember 3 weeks ago when we talked about Steve Jobs, how it was like the movie took place in the middle ground between big launches of like new Apple products. It wasn't the big glitz and glamour Apple product that we were shown. It was the interpersonal moments before, which made for such a great film. The director also did this. For example, no showing the death of David. It just was a hard cut, walk in, the dad's like, David is dead. Another example, like the whole point is to win the national belt thing. Curry wins it, but we're watching it from the mom's perspective on a tube TV. And it's like faded out and the audio's in the background. So they do this time, like we don't see the motorcycle accident. So time and time again, we do not see the catalyst for change. We just see the reactions and the change because of the catalysts. Did you like that? Did you think it brought a more humanistic and a more pointed experience on the storytelling? Or did you feel like, hey, sometimes we need those big storytelling moments, and without them, it left a little bit of a letdown?
I think that it added to the movie, having these big moments be understated and seeing them from perspectives that perhaps aren't objectively the most exciting, right? We are experiencing the news of David's loss with Kevin as he's hearing it. And with Kevin being the perspective character, I think, like we felt a sense of loss, right? We didn't get to say goodbye to David. And then regarding Curry's win, it speaks to how hollow the victory is at the end of the day. Does it really matter? No, not really. The story isn't about Curry versus the heavyweight championship. It's the story of these brothers and this family. And so in that scene where the mom is watching the TV, I believe this is the scene where David is sitting out of focus on the stairs, and we cut to the tube TV, and then we cut back, and he's gone. And so we know what's on the mom's mind, like perhaps more so than what's happening on TV. And that's the more important bit of information.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like the purpose of understating, and again, it was very intentional, but I just think sometimes intentionality doesn't always translate to good. But I think in this moment, it was intentional. It was them choosing to understate certain things to overstate other things. So that basically like, hey, wrestling was their whole world. Well, now it's a radio announcement in the background where a mother's grieving the death of her son because of wrestling. So I think it really did work. So yeah, no, thank you. You helped me bring some light to an opinion there. I think I agree with you there. Something else, and I keep wanting to try to get to the holy moment. I have to edit these things. The longer they are, the more I have to edit. But another thing I just thought of when you were talking was just a little thing. I really, really, really liked how they did editing with time. They like Jeffrey kind of said earlier, they were kind of all over this spun like a 9-year frame. Like it was it wasn't like a year or two. It was over a longer duration. And they did it they give you just enough like physical details that you kind of know time has passed, but it's kind of confusing. It's kind of like a lucid dream of like, where are we? When are we? And I like that. I like that they didn't have to give exposition of like, okay, well now we're like this year doing this thing. The closest thing we got to that was when there were big wrestling matches, they would do like an old graphic of like Kevin versus, Bob, the Ripper, and they're fighting, and then they have like a little title card of the year. But all I'm trying to say is they would edit around in a way that you weren't quite sure how many years had passed, but every once in a while they would give you a physical determination. Like, for example, when Curry goes drunk driving on his motorcycle and you think he's going to crash and die, but he wakes up the next morning and you're like, oh, okay, he's fine. He gets on crutches. Oh, he must have gotten in a wreck. Okay, he hurt himself. Stands up, no leg. So supposedly, years can maybe have passed at this point because of his leg. So long story short, I just enjoyed the editing and the time moving where it felt very fluid, but not so fluid that I didn't know quite what's happening, but they didn't have to stay with exposition. They were able to show like these physical items. Oh, she's pregnant. Oh, now there's a kid. Oh, he had a leg. Now he doesn't have a leg. I just thought it made for a good kind of confusing vibe that helped with the emotional turmoil climax of the ending of the movie.
Yeah, I agree with that. I enjoyed the pacing a lot. I think adding to the confusion was just sort of Zac Efron looking so much older, but like that did not detract. Like that was just a minor question in the back of my brain, the very deepest recesses of my brain.
The deepest recesses of Jeffrey's human soul is, how old is Zac Efron?
How old is Zac Efron compared to these other actors and the characters? But I would not have had it any other way.
Yeah. No, they did an exquisite job with that. Well, I would like to say that was everything I wanted to talk about. I think that was 90%. 90%. I love a movie when there's just more and more to discuss. Hey, guys, if we didn't discuss your favorite part or we discussed your favorite part and you thought we were wrong, email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know. Maybe your favorite scene was, what was it? Oh, when they fought the Free Birds, when it was 3-on-3 and they like kept jump kicking. I enjoyed how much they jump kicked in the movie. That was great. But yeah, let us know. Tell us your favorite parts of the movie, and we'd love to discuss them here on the podcast. But Jeffrey, what was your holy moment for this movie? One, I feel like just ripe with holy moments, scenes, themes, acting, so many things you could pick from. I'm really curious what you have to say.
I think mine, easy cop-out answer would be Zac Efron's performance and Kevin's character. I really resonated with them both. But specific scenes would be the bathroom stall. Just the amount of vulnerability and emotional maturity of that scene. And it really established the closeness, the intimacy that these two brothers shared, but it also showcased the hurt that they had experienced at the hands of their father unknowingly. Them, throwing out the idea of going to the hospital and missing out on that Japan trip, but neither of them can take it seriously just because of how they've been conditioned, right? The love for each other that they have for each other is no less real or lesser because they're refusing to consider it as a real option. It's just impossible for them.
Great scene. Great scene. I thought beautifully shot. I love the simplicity. I love the look, the color, but then more importantly, the emotion. Like you said, they really turned the script on its head. And I think they did a great job with it. Oh, man, my holy moment. I had a hard time. There were so many scenes to pick from. I was between three. The first being the one that I already mentioned with Kevin being confused and angry about the death of his brother, and then he goes beats the crap out of Rick. Then the other one was just one piece of dialogue. I think it's kind of the dialogue that everyone like. There's a scene or a piece of dialogue everyone talks about, and it was at the end of the movie where Kevin is crying after all his brothers have died at this point, and the sons come up and they ask him, "Why are you crying?" And he's like, "Well, I used to be a brother, and now I'm not." Heart-wrenching line. But for me, when I really thought about it, the scene that meant the most to me wasn't really a montage, but the queuing up of Mike's suicide. Funny enough, Mike was the character I cared the least about. But up until this point, I wasn't quite emotionally invested yet. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the acting. I thought the structure, the pacing, the cinematography, it was all good. But I wasn't quite fully in it. But when he's sitting in the room alone and he starts strumming on the guitar and starts singing slowly the song "Live That Way Forever," and then we see him take all the pills. I could stop there and say that was the best scene, but more than that, it starts to intercut with Curry and Kevin in the wrestling ring. And Curry at this point has lost his foot. He's trying to fake it. He's putting on like like a parasthetic. What is it called?
A prosthetic?
He's putting on a prosthetic boot so he can wrestle. So it's nighttime. Curry and Kevin are wrestling, and you can clearly tell Kevin's like, "Why are we doing this, man? You can't wrestle. You lost your leg." But this meant everything to Curry. The younger brother, he needs to prove himself. He's like, "Please wrestle with me." So we have these two brothers wrestling, and it's so sad to see one brother going fully at it and the other one being like, "I can't do this. You're in so much pain." All while Mike, who is alone, not even in the ring with them, is singing this really eerily sad song, a new rendition of it. And little do they know he's about to go kill himself. And so it's all of that. And it's the first time in the movie we have someone actually talking about their emotions. We finally have Kevin saying, "What is this all about, man? Come on, we got to get through. This isn't just about wrestling. You lost your leg. This is about something more." And Curry still can't talk about what this is really about, what's really going on. He can't talk about his emotions. So it was the first moment in the movie that really got me emotionally. And then something else I didn't realize till I was writing out my thoughts was the song "Live That Way Forever" was kind of their big anthem song. I think it was like the original song written for the movie. And it shows up 3 times. It shows up first where Mike gets his first music gig at the college party, and he sings this song. It's really bombastic, 80s, nostalgic. You love it. It's at a party. Everyone's partying. It feels good. And then it's played again in the middle of the movie when Mike is about to commit suicide. And now it's stripped barren. It's no longer a band. It's just him kind of thumbing at a guitar, raspily singing as we know what he's about to do. And then it's played at the very end of the movie, last scene, going into the credits. And it's taken on this amalgamation of both scenes. It's bittersweet now. It's no longer hype and exciting, and it's no longer pure depression. It's this bittersweet memory of what once was and what can be. And I thought, like, the moment I realized what they were doing with the evolution of that song, kind of there in the middle of the movie, I thought was really beautiful. And so for all those reasons working together, that one scene was my holy moment.
I didn't notice that continuity of songs there. I'll have to pay attention to that more next time I see it. But no, that's a great moment.
Yeah, I definitely highly recommend looking up the song, but then also look up the specific scene where he's just singing it, because there's completely different vibes. It's so crazy how you can play a song 3 different times and it garnish 3 different emotions. At the beginning of the movie, the brothers are just enjoying life. They're wrestling. They're at the top of the world. They're peak athletes. This is a song to live in the moment. I could live that way forever. And then the middle of the movie, where shit's hitting the fan, they're going through this depression. Live that way forever. What if I have to live with these emotions forever that I hate? What if I'm stuck in this iron claw forever? And then the end of the movie, live that way forever. It's no longer about living in the moment with like perfect type good feelings or bad feelings. It's about the combination of kind of both and a full story of what it's like to live life. And it was beautiful. Well, sweet. Those are all my thoughts on the Iron Claw. And thank you guys for listening. Before we jump on out of here, I believe we need to figure out what we're watching next week. Jeffrey, I believe that's your honors.
Yes, absolutely. Hold on. Let me bring out the wheel, folks.
Woo! What do you only have 2 left?
I only have 2 left. I'm just going to do a random number generator.
Yeah, Lincoln and don't tell me. Lincoln and Total Recall. Oh, I do either of those.
Yeah, me too. I'd be pretty excited for both. You know what I could do? If I had a penny, I'd flip a coin. And then if it's heads, I would do Lincoln.
Oh, that's funny. I don't have any penny on me, unfortunately. I bet if you go to flipapenny.com, I bet that's a thing.
I'll do it. Flip a
Well, Jeffrey
penny.
does that. I'm going to talk about where you can find us. If you guys like us, care about us, follow us on our social media, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Guys, what we're doing here is trying to build a community of film lovers. We like talking about movies. It's something that Jeffrey and I love doing. We get to hang out, be best buds. But more than that, we're film creators. We want to hear what you guys are watching, what you guys are interested in. We want to hear your thoughts. You know, what do you guys care about? Like, we want to write scripts. We want to make movies. It's interesting to hear what people like watching nowadays. So reach out to us. We want to do more. We want to connect with a community of people that want to watch films together. And if you want to do that, email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. All right, Jeffrey.
All right. Actually, I think I might know where a penny is. Just give me 1 second.
Oh. Well, then, if I, future Nathaniel, decide to keep this in because I can think of something clever and funny to say, I will. And if not, future Nathaniel is going to edit this out and you guys will be none the wiser. I made banana bread today, but we didn't have sugar, so I'd use confectioner sugar, and it was gross. It ended up being kind of just thick and didn't taste like banana. I don't understand. No matter how much banana I put in banana bread, it never tastes like banana. But the minute you put an ounce of banana in a smoothie, all it tastes like is banana, nothing else. Like, why is that? I put like double the amount of banana I was supposed to put into this banana bread recipe. Granted, I didn't use the right sugar, but still, it didn't work out and it made me very sad. But I ate like half the loaf while watching this movie because I was too lazy to make real dinner. So I just ate half a loaf of banana bread. Very sad banana bread. Oh, Jeffrey's back, so I can end my story. If, Jeffrey, you want to hear about that story, I'll have to listen to the podcast.
I'm excited. All right, here we go. Heads, it's Lincoln. Tails, it's Total Recall.
Tails for total.
Tails for total. Okay. It's Lincoln.
It's Lincoln. I would say when you went to flip a coin, it's always heads. It's like, they say it's like 50-50 or maybe 51%. It's like 80-20, I swear. Okay, Lincoln. Huzzah. Well, hey guys, join us next week as we watch the autobiography of Lincoln. Ended slavery. If you guys don't watch our episode next week, you're racist. That's what we'll end it on. No, I'm kidding. We'll end it on this note. Go to the gym, get jacked, get ripped, but also talk to a therapist. Get your brain ripped as well. You can't have rippling abs and a smooth brain. You must have a rippling brain and rippling abs. Well, with that bit of knowledge, until next time, we love all of you. Let's build this community together and keep watching movies. Bye.